empower more people to participate in building the future. Create basically massively multiplayer games, but real world.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Wow. That's quite a deep of an introduction to our listeners who are still making sense of that. Gary, okay. Now your question and your work, because you have Gitcoin mentioned on your badge, and we have been working with Gitcoin on and off. At least we have been having a lot of discussions. And I really admire, I truly admire from the bottom of my heart the folks and the work that Gitcoin is doing. I'm going to ask a very different question here, right? Like, so imagine somebody in the room. I was just having a discussion about someone thinking about the Near ecosystem and Sybil attacks happening, right? Like, and I know that Gitcoin has a project, Gitcoin Passport, which is phenomenal. Like, there are so many people signing up for it. That's not my primary question. My question is, pick any elite community that has taken 4 years, 5 years to establish. Like, Gitcoin has done a lot of hard work to get to where it is today, right? But for someone who's starting out today, even if they have a good solution in mind, they have something which is a good value add, getting to the same extent of popularity or distribution where the solution can be leveraged by individuals around the world is a very tricky thing to achieve. What I'm essentially asking is, how can an average Joe distribute their product, or what should they think about doing before we even get into the problems that exist in the industry to like do a good distribution on their end?
So if I'm hearing this correctly, like you have a great product you're building. How do you get traction on it?
Yes, without any social background, you're like nobody.
Yeah. So I think, let's say you're building some kind of DAO tool, like, or just some tool that's useful for a community to advance its goals, make more money, grow the number of members, etc. You're not building a social network, so you don't need to have 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers or even 1,000 followers necessarily. Maybe 1,000 followers helps you close the deal because you're like, oh, some people like this thing, and it's like social proof.
Yeah.
But like, if someone sees that you're building like a free open source, or it doesn't necessarily be free, but it's like you can understand the code that you're building and it's like actually useful to them. Why do I care how many? Like, it's a nice to have a bunch of users, but you just need to find a potential customer that exactly has the pain point that you're solving, and hopefully the product that you're building is not completely a commodity yet, right? Because sorry, you picked the wrong like product to build if there's like a million tools that do the same thing that what you're building, right? So ideally you pick a product to build that addresses a need that no other product is currently addressing. And then if you satisfy that criteria, you're going to find your first customer. And if you actually help them advance their mission, they're going to spread the word for you, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In the early days, specifically, like finding one customer that truly jumps with excitement at what you have built is like a win in itself. You don't have to go and identify 30 people who are doing that. And if I'm being a little vulnerable here, Gary, we made the mistake of not doing that. Like at DaoLens, when we launched, we went with these smaller communities because we wanted to like have numbers, like 40 communities are using us, 50 communities are using us. And it took us quite some time before we realized, oh, wow, we have like absolutely been idiots. So thank you for saying that. My next question to you is, let's say you have 24 more hours in the day. What are the 3 problem statements that you would be building? Essentially, the other way of asking this would be what do you think is like low-hanging fruits that nobody is really solving for? What would you encourage people to build today based on your experience? And if it is related to DAOs, even better.
So I'm still figuring out how much time I want to personally allocate to this, but I think experiments in piloting what a future civilization could look like is really like, okay, network state. Yeah. I'm sure you, Balaji, where do you start? You start with a network village. You start with like 1,000 people or even 200 people that are living somewhere for a few months at a time. Then you go to it, and not saying it has to exactly be this order, but it's like, maybe it's 1,000 people that live somewhere for a couple months at a time. Or it's just a permanent residence for 1,000 people. So I'm actually helping advise on a big project. I won't say too much details as it's still being figured out, but like there's a huge plot of land that has been acquired in Latin America, and there's a big ambition to turn this into like a self-sustaining regenerative village
Yeah.
that leverages like top technology, like digital twin technology, Web3 governance. Like, how do you like make people feel like they really co-own the future of this village? And if this goes well, right, that says a lot about, okay, maybe we'll do more villages, right? That take what really worked in this first experiment, and then basically create like a distributed country. So I have plenty on my plate, so I don't know how much time I'm going to dedicate to that. But I think a lot of people need to be thinking about how to basically create the future of living in life, because otherwise, for most people, this stuff is just so abstract. What's the point? Why do you create a DAO? Well, I think some of the most important DAOs in the future will be ones that just govern actual physical like villages and cities. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And it's interesting we're sitting here where we have a City DAO lounge. I was just coming out of a project where they're thinking of like installing sensors and those sensors automating tasks, and it's all structured as a DAO. I completely resonate with what you just said, but I'm gonna ask you to give me one more idea or like one more problem statement, but that's probably for somebody who's, let's say, so whatever you just talked about, it needs a certain amount of
So much has to be.
yeah. And on that, like this person who is doing it, they need to be in a state in life where like they are secure, right? Like, so for somebody who's thinking of like, maybe they have gotten introduced to Web3, or they're thinking of like, okay, I want to do it with a team of 5 people. What else do you think? Like one more project that you would probably think of, like domain project, work stream, whatsoever.
It's a great question.
Take your time. It's okay.
So here's a problem area that I think is going to be more and more of a problem. Scammers.
I love it.
So what is AI helping us do? It's lowering the cost of scamming people. Okay, so we need to have an arms race for protecting people. We need an arms race for privacy preserving identity technology that allows you to say, hey, I'm trustworthy, but I don't want to give you my government ID, right? But I want to have government ID level verification. I want to show that I went to law school and I have a law degree, but I want to be anonymous, right? And yet I want to show my law credential. So there's a few people that I know that are working on stuff like this, but like a lot of people need to be thinking about this. So, and even if you don't want to build a startup around scam stuff, watch out because you might be scammed just as an individual, right? So it might be just worth it for you, even to start to like think about how to protect your privacy, how to make sure that you're not a victim of some scam. I was actually recently a victim of that. I clicked on a link because I thought it was someone that was trustworthy, and they found a way to impersonate me and create a lot of issues for me. So they're pretty top of mind for me.
And how do you really do that? Like, what do you think is a tangible first step towards reducing it? Because okay, so I know that one of the ways in which you could do is probably go and then profile everybody. Like it's a data race where you're trying to like gather or like dust enough profiles where you can go in and say, okay, this looks like a shady person. I'm looking at their behavior and so on. But that doesn't scale because criminals also are very smart, right? Like, so of course, AI can do a lot of stuff where they can like profile people and then there is a manual check available. And I have some background in it because I worked at Merkle Science. We deal with like crypto. We dealt with crypto forensics and blockchain compliance. And the goal was like, I have to identify if Gary is like into money laundering by looking at how you are like really doing transactions and whatnot. But just so, because whatever you just said, our listeners, when they hear from people who have like some sort of a background or people like yourself, they may be thinking about this problem very seriously. I also want to give them a nudge of maybe a likely step to follow through. So what do you think is like a good first step towards finding a solution?
So there's Gitcoin helped start a community that's just talking about this problem area.
Yeah.
So I would just say learn. Don't pretend like you're going to come up with a solution immediately. Learn what the smartest people are saying the problem is. I'm definitely not one of those, but I can. My job is to say, learn, and talk to people that are building solutions like Gitcoin Passport, right? And they're going to tell you what we're building is not enough.
Yeah.
And they probably have specific ideas of what you should be building. So you're going to want to network, right? If you care about a particular any issue, or whether that's civil defense or something else, go to meetups, right? Go to find great newsletters, right? But importantly, talk to people that are real people that are super passionate about a space. Because if you actually look like you care about learning, they might talk your ear off and give you all this alpha on the space that you won't be able to find in a blog post, because, well, part of it is because it takes a certain kind of person to want to document what's in their brain. So being someone that looks genuinely curious about a problem space is very helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Gary. And I'm going to actually add something I learned. Like, you see, there are some people who are very creative. And it's very easy for somebody who's on the sideline to think about, oh, they're just born creative, or they have more of an IQ. But it's barely that. It's the fact that they are doing the hard work. They're always educating themselves for that creativity or that spark to come to them. There's a lot of dump that they are having on their subconscious, which is why when they're thinking about a problem, they actually end up identifying a solution on that line. But to my last question for you is, how can somebody reach out to you if they relate to anything that you just talked about? What is the right way of reaching out to you?
Yeah, the best way to reach out to me is either through LinkedIn. My name is, you can look up my name on LinkedIn, Gary Sheng, GarySheng. And my Twitter, which I'm really accessible on as well, is just my first and last name as well. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to see if I can be helpful.
Awesome. And folks, you can reach out to me at Viksrum, VIKS_RUM, and everything at DaoLens is DaoLens. This is a wrap from our end. Thank you so much for doing this, Gary, with me. I hope you had fun.